While the fintech revolution is slowly encompassing Malaysians around the country, the question remains on how data is currently being used by companies online. Recent scandals involving a company called Cambridge Analytica and how they mined data of about 50 million Facebook users have thrown consumers in a paranoid state. We speak to Bazaar International CEO Vipin Kalra on how he thinks the consumers are approaching this whole story from the get-go.
I think it's a very interesting juncture in our lifetime where on one side we are seeing a huge adoption of internet and consumers are more and more getting connected. Here in Malaysia itself, as I understand, 80% of population is online connected with internet using their smartphone devices or otherwise through desktops. So consumers are getting more comfortable in going online, sharing information, but also buying and purchasing things online. And again, that's what has given the rise to this platform economy on one side. Consumers move from searching for information to looking for things that they could buy to going to their trusted websites and buying directly now. Amazon being one of those, Lazada and many other e-commerce platforms have given a very good platform for consumers to go and buy. So consumers are getting more comfortable on that side. However, as you quite rightly said, on the other side, consumers are getting a little bit paranoid and confused in terms of how their information is being captured and then used. So there is a bit of a mixed feeling, in my opinion, among the consumers. Having said all that, I don't think that has stopped the adoption of e-commerce and marketplaces in the world. And I think two key stakeholders who can play a very important role in this educational process and also setting the right standards for the market. And those two key stakeholders are the fintech companies like ourselves, as well as the regulators. And I think in Malaysia, the regulator is doing a fantastic job in terms of giving us the right settings, right? They setting very high standards in terms of data privacy, security standards, and also through the PDPA, which is Personal Data Privacy Act, which basically sets clear standards in terms of not only how data is captured, but how responsibly it's used as well. So we at Bazaar, we take security very, very seriously. It's the top of our mind. It's one of the most important things we do to make sure that not only we capture information and store information correctly. We are an ISO 27000 certified company, which is the highest standard you can get for any information security. But also, we make sure that we comply with each country's PDPA or equivalent standards in order to use data responsibly as well. We do not share data without the consumer consent. We make it very clear to consumer what this data is going to be used for, and we actually try not to share with third parties unless it's absolutely necessary. So it's on a need-to-know basis we use the information. The old school has to learn the tricks for the new school, for the new world. I myself, I've worked in that industry for 25 years. When I came to Bazaar, I thought, what can I learn? And I was so wrong. I was totally blown away by the science and the technology that's involved behind the scene in terms of dealing with the consumers of the modern days and the consumers of future. Right. So we are preparing ourselves to make sure that we can meet the needs and demands of the consumers of the future. And that requires a much deeper knowledge of the consumer, their behavior, who they are, where they're going, and how they want to transact in future. We also need to know a very deep understanding of what is the needs of the consumers in future when it comes to financial services and where the gaps are in terms of what financial institutions are offering today versus where they need to go. And I think this is where exactly the fintech is making the biggest difference, in my opinion. A lot of fintech companies are very good at in terms of using data and technology to come up with the new ways of offering services in a more convenient and at a lower cost basis. I think we need to draw a very clear line between what is consumer has given consent to and where we need to stay at a macro and a micro level. Right? We can do, and in fact any company can do macro level analysis using the consumer data. There's nothing wrong with that at all. You are simply trying to pick up trends at a macro level as well as at a micro level. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. The issue of privacy and the concerns from the consumer groups and the regulator comes from the fact that when you cross that line and step into identifying individual consumer, and without their consent, you start to use their information to give it to a third party who was not authorized to receive that information. That's where you kind of gone too far, right? And I think we need to really stay very true to our commitment and promise to the consumer that we can pick a lot of intelligence and insights from a market level data, from a macro segment level and a micro segment level data, and we can use that information very intelligently in a both machine learning way as well as manually to inform our decisions in the future. So we can offer better services, we can target consumers better, we can customize product and services better for consumers. But the moment we cross that line, we must seek consumer consent. And consumer has the right to say, no, I don't want to share this information, or yes, I'm okay for you to share this information, but for a specific purpose. I think it's a joint responsibility. I don't think consumers alone should be held responsible for it. In my opinion, consumers should be educated to make sure they understand the implication of sharing information. But we must make it easy for consumers to go about their daily life without worrying about data privacy issue every day. I think it's our moral responsibility as well as social responsibility to make sure that we make life easier for consumers and not burden them about worrying about the privacy issue on a day-to-day basis, right? I think it's the onus is on us as a society, as the companies, as financial institutions, as regulators, to make sure that we make that life easier for consumers. We inform them, we educate them where we need to, but we also behave in a responsible fashion in our own domain. I think we have everything that we need to grow the business and give our investors not only assurance but also return that they are seeking. We take our business very, very seriously. Whilst we have expansion plans, we want to make sure that in every market we go to, that we have a very strong business ethics and a sustainable business model. We're very particular about making sure we don't lose money. We're not in the game of simply spending all our investors' money in marketing to drive traffic and hoping that one day somebody will buy me out. We're not in that business at all. We are here for the long run, and for us to sustain in a long run, we have to have a solid business model which creates a revenue stream that outperform our expense line. It's as simple as that. We have a commitment to our investors, and we are going to true to that commitment that there is a defined period within which we have to break even and become a profitable business in every market. And we are pretty much on track on that path. So we, as I mentioned, we started the business in India 9 years ago. We've built a very successful business in India. We've learned a lot from that market. It's a very different market, but it's a huge market. We started business in Singapore last year, and we take the learnings, our technology platform, our marketing skills, and all the learnings that come from our India business, and we applied those learnings in Singapore, and I think we've created a very successful business model in Singapore as well. This year, we started in Malaysia, and we're on the path of creating a very sustainable business model here in Malaysia as well. Our future plan would be, again, it depends on the success of Singapore and Malaysia, clearly. However, we'd like to see ourselves expanding to 5 to 10 more markets. Markets like Australia, Hong Kong, UAE, Canada, UK, they look very attractive. But at the same time, the Southeast Asian markets like Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam are also very promising. Philippines, they're all very promising markets. So we are evaluating all these markets. However, it's very clear in my mind that we have to get our fundamental rights in the existing markets first before we venture into new markets.
I've been speaking to Vipin Kalra, the CEO of BBazaar. If you've missed... While the